What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. WrestleMania 32, which took place on April 3rd, 2016 at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. A WrestleMania that a lot of people thought was going to be one of the absolute greatest with the star-studded roster WWE had at the time, and especially the expected attendance of 100,000 people to be at this event, breaking the WrestleMania 3 record of 93,000. However, as we were closing off 2015, going into 2016, the list of injuries had began, with stars like John Cena, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, and Sting all top stars suffering injuries before WrestleMania 32 happened and wouldn't make it in time for the event. And actually, a little known fact if you didn't know is that every champion that had walked out of the prior year's WrestleMania was a part of this injured list. So with the top stars unfortunately not being able to compete at WrestleMania 32, it ended up resulting in a lot of different match changes and making WrestleMania 32, in a lot of people's opinions, ending up being one of the most lackluster in recent memory. But today we answer the question of what if WrestleMania 32 was booked different had those top stars been able to compete. So starting off with the pre-show matches, the first match listed is Ryback versus Kalisto for the WWE United States Championship, which was a match that happened on the pre-show in the real timeline, and I believe Kalisto did retain in this match, which would be exactly the same thing as we would see in this alternate universe. The next match on the pre-show would be the Team Total Divas versus Team Bad and Blonde, which Team Total Divas would comprise of Alicia Fox, Brie Bella, Nikki Bella, Natalia, and Paige, against Team Bad and Blonde, which is Emma, Lana, Naomi, Summer Rae, and Tamina. And I believe this matchup is exactly the same with the competitors, besides that I believe Nikki Bella wasn't actually a part of this match because she was in that injured list, having injured her neck near the end of 2015. But in this match, it would be the exact same result, that Team Total Divas would win this match. And then last but not least for the pre-show would be the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and of course I still have it as Baron Corbin as the winner. And I believe in the real timeline this was not on the pre-show, but when you have those big stars now being able to compete in this particular timeline, that this match most likely would have been pushed on the pre-show. So the first official match of this card would be the ladder match that had happened in the real timeline for the Intercontinental Championship, but the participants are a bit different. Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, Neville, Sami Zayn, Stardust, and the reigning champion Kevin Owens. Now, in the real timeline, Zack Ryder was a part of this match and actually won this matchup. However, the only reason that Zack Ryder was a part of that match is because Neville actually injured his ankle in a match with Chris Jericho on an episode of Monday Night Raw, and thus having Zack Ryder last minute actually take that spot. But would that have meant that Neville actually would have won this match in the real timeline? I don't exactly think so, which is why my match result would be that The Miz becomes the brand new Intercontinental Champion, considering that in the real timeline, Zack Ryder actually dropped the title to The Miz on the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania 32. The second match on the card would be AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho, one of the more hyped matches of the actual show in the real timeline, which is still continues here, even though there were talks about possibly Chris Jericho wrestling Dean Ambrose on the show, which is why they ended up having a feud after WrestleMania. But I still think, especially with knowing that AJ Styles would still be in WWE as of the Royal Rumble, that they would put AJ Styles with a high-profile wrestler like Chris Jericho on this show, in which I might as well keep it the same result. Chris Jericho defeats AJ Styles. The next matchup is Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton. Now, of course, we did get this match later on in the year at SummerSlam, where we did see Brock Lesnar beat Randy Orton to a bloody pulp and win via, I believe, a TKO victory, as they stated. Brock Lesnar actually had a lot of different possible matches. There were rumors about having the rematch from the prior year's WrestleMania with Roman Reigns for the World Championship. There was talks of Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt for WrestleMania. In the real timeline, Brock Lesnar did face Dean Ambrose in a no-holds-barred street fight, and unfortunately in the real timeline, Randy Orton was a part of that list of injured superstars, so he didn't compete at this WrestleMania, and Randy Orton's first match back was against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, so it makes me think that maybe they wanted to plant the seeds for a potential match at WrestleMania 32, and that they would have pulled the trigger here instead of in the summer at SummerSlam. The next match is a fatal four-way tag team match for the WWE Tag Team Champions. The teams would be the Usos, the Dudley Boys, the League of Nations, and the reigning champions, the New Day. Now, in the real timeline, all four of these teams had separate matches. On the pre-show of the real timeline, the Usos faced the Dudley Boys, which saw the Usos defeat them, and then the League of Nations challenged the New Day. However, with the whole big roster, they probably wouldn't have been able to have those two separate matches, so it was smart to have these four top teams competing against each other at WrestleMania, in which is safe to say for this match, it would be the New Day retaining the tag team championships, since that match with the League of Nations and New Day in the real timeline wasn't for the tag team titles, and I believe New Day was still continuing their reign to officially become the longest reigning tag team champions in WWE history. The next match would be Sting versus Bray Wyatt. Now, this was a very interesting match to kind of figure out, considering that, of course, Sting didn't compete. He actually technically announced his retirement here due to the neck injury he suffered against Seth Rollins at Night of Champions in late 2015. And so it makes me think, had Sting not got injured, what would he have been doing at WrestleMania 32, and who would he be facing that isn't, of course, The Undertaker, because I still think that Vince McMahon would not have had faith in having that match happen at WrestleMania. So it made sense to have him with Bray Wyatt, where he has a young guy that's kind of able to carry Sting in a way, but you have somewhat similar gimmicks that would make the match very intriguing. And of course, like I mentioned, there was original plans of Bray Wyatt supposedly having a match with Brock Lesnar, but ending up being scrapped due to them liking the idea of Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar much better. So this was kind of a difficult match to figure out who I think would win, but I think maybe in this case, Sting would actually win the match. He already was on a 2-match losing streak, having lost to Triple H at the prior year's WrestleMania, which he should have won. And of course, Sting did not defeat Seth Rollins at Night of Champions for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So I feel like this time around, they would finally give Sting some love and actually having him have a victory as terms to a main pay-per-view event, especially at a WrestleMania. The next match is a triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship. It's Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks versus Charlotte Flair. This is one of those instances when it comes to doing these kinds of videos where if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because this was easily the best match in the real timeline of WrestleMania 32, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. There's just so much action involved. Charlotte's moonsault off top rope onto Becky and Sasha. A lot of people do think that Sasha should have won this match because of how over she was, but I'm still gonna keep it the same, where Charlotte Flair retains the championship, especially because this was the night that the Divas Championship retired and they reinstated the Women's Championship, and of course they were gonna keep that long reign for Charlotte Flair. The next match would be Seth Rollins versus Triple H in a no-holds-barred match. The match that we basically got the year after in the real timeline at WrestleMania 33. I believe it was rumored that had Seth Rollins not got injured, that he was supposed to have a one-on-one match with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, where he would drop the WWE World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns and kind of kick off that storyline going into the road to WrestleMania. However, because of Seth Rollins' injury, that kind of changed things to where they decided to go down the route of the one versus all Royal Rumble, and then Triple H winning the title, and we seen that match of Triple H versus Roman Reigns that was a lot of people's opinions being one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time due to crowd reaction. But regardless, that match at WrestleMania 33 was great, and it probably would have been the same thing at WrestleMania 32 with the same result of Seth Rollins defeating Triple Triple H in that matchup. Even though people like to flack Triple H about always putting himself over in a lot of matches, he put a lot of people over at WrestleMania. Then in what would be the semi-main event of this event is for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and it's Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns. A lot of people, when doing this kind of fantasy booking, would assume that there was going to be a Shield triple threat match, but part of me thinks that there wasn't actually going to be a Shield main event at any point, especially planting the seeds for Seth Rollins in this case. And you're probably wondering, how does Dean Ambrose get into this situation? And that is because I believe in this timeline, Dean Ambrose would have been the winner of the 2016 Royal Rumble match. Especially in the real timeline, he was actually the runner-up to Triple H in that match. So sometimes WWE likes to drop those Easter egg hints to what could have happened, and I think this would have been the case, that Dean Ambrose would have won the Royal Rumble. However, I don't think WWE would have had faith in Dean Ambrose winning the WWE Championship at this time, so Roman Reigns does retain the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And the main event of this show would be John Cena versus The Undertaker. One of the biggest rumor matches going into the show before John Cena unfortunately suffered his shoulder injury just before the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. And I think especially with Undertaker kind of having that somewhat full-time schedule, working a lot of shows near the end of 2015 and then leading up to WrestleMania 32, I think this was Undertaker's request that he would have hung up the boots after WrestleMania 32, especially this event happening in his home state of Texas, and this would have been the official retirement match of The Undertaker, and basically having that send-off that he ended up having with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33 a year later. I think that was supposed to happen here at WrestleMania 32, but instead, because of this happening, somehow they decided to put Undertaker with Shane McMahon inside Hell in a Cell. So I think it was the plan that John Cena was going to be the final match of The Undertaker's career, and I would just keep it the same as what they would have had at WrestleMania 34 2 years after, where Undertaker does go over in this match. I do think it's longer than like the 3 to 5 minutes they had at WrestleMania 34. It would have been a decently long match, and it wouldn't be Hell in a Cell, just straight up one-on-one. Undertaker goes over, gets his final send-off, and retires in his home state of Texas. That's going to be the end of this edition of Pro Wrestling What If. And if you enjoyed this edition, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you also share this. And let me know down below what you would have thought happened had those top stars not got injured and WrestleMania 32 was booked different. But thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys next time on Pro Wrestling What If.